What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. Back with another Epic Collection review. You can head to the link in my description below. Sign up for my newsletter. You get my videos once a week and a digest for that. And you get a free graphic novel from me. If you love superheroes and the classic style of things, you're really going to love my work. I hope you show up and hang out, read the books, support the channel. Appreciate that, guys. And this is Wolverine, Blood and Claws. This is Volume 3, 1990 and 1991. And it is Wolverine 31 through 34 and 2 graphic novels, Bloodlust and Bloody Choices. Now, the first Wolverine volume started out after that original miniseries that everybody thinks about as like the Wolverine breakout thing. But it starts when he gets into the Marvel Comics Presents and then into his actual series. Wolverine ends up in Madripoor and sort of has some adventures there. This gets into Larry Hama's and Mark Silvestri's run. Really iconic stuff. Honestly, the stories in this you don't really think of as like big stories these days. They're about 3 or 4 parters throughout all of this. And all of them are just solid stories and very interesting and different. But they don't, they just don't feel like they lend themselves towards movies, maybe. In the first one, Wolverine is, fighting the Yakuza. You see Silvestri's style here. He draws some beautiful art, but he's actually still got the panel layouts of that pre-image era where they were still pretty tight in the panels. And I actually like this sort of look in comics better. It makes me feel like I'm actually reading a comic. But look at this shadowing. Look at this just action pose. This is really cool stuff by Silvestri. Very nice to get some of his, sort of early work in here before he got into that image era. And you notice how the colors are still like very late 80s, and haven't gone into that like overboard look yet. Lots of just stark color contrasts, one tones here. Really cool, beautiful stuff. Wolverine fights the Yakuza in this, and basically they're coming up with a drug that is, it kills you, but it makes you super strong at the beginning. We've had lots of these in Marvel Comics over the years, and this is a fun one. Wolverine travels all over to try to fight and stop this, and eventually ends up doing so. So, very cool stuff. Oh my gosh, just like the art on this is just really beautiful to read. Wonderful stuff. It's a simple storyline. It lasts a few issues. There's a ton of action. They always underestimate Wolverine. And what I like about this is the healing power is a part of this. He does get shot up a few times in this. But in modern stories, like now stories, you often see that Wolverine is almost like the butt of the joke. He just gets like eviscerated down to a skeleton and then comes back. It's like, really? The way that his healing powers work through this are a little on the better and simpler side. Now, once he is done with that Yakuza storyline, he actually goes out into Canada, into the northern tundra, and has to deal with some interesting situations through here. And he had a one-shot, and then that continues after Bloodlust. Now, Bloodlust has a completely different creative team of Alan Davis and Paul Neary, and this is a really cool storyline. I really enjoyed this this graphic novel. He's out in Canada, Wolverine, and even though it's not Mark Silvestri art, it still works very well. And Alan Davis does a wonderful story with the graphic novel with this. Wolverine finds these like creatures who are like evolved, basically, and he thinks they're the monsters at first, but eventually he comes, meets them, and it turns out there's some like rogues among them who are like taking people as sacrifices and being evil, and they're trying to stop them too. So they help out Wolverine and get him back to normal. There's of course a girl who's Wolverine's trying to save and hunt down, and just a very simple classic story. And these little Yeti creatures are like the evolved creatures. Eventually, Wolverine finds out that she actually is the bad one that's hiding as a human, pretending to be one, and it has to end up slaying the person. Look at the beautiful ending here. Just nicely cleaned up. Good stuff. Then it gets into like back into the main storyline and here's the Blood and Claws where that name comes from. And in this Canada situation, he ends up in this like town in Canada, and he's being hunted down by several different people, and he ends up. It's a very weird situation. He ends up in this like time vortex where he's thrown back into Spain during World War II. And there's this Lady Deathstrike who wants him dead. Ah. And you get the Silvestri art again. You just see how dynamic he is compared to other artists. Just awesome stuff. And that issue, he ends up joining with the the Republican Guard, which is like kind of the communist people back then, to fight off against a bunch of Nazis who were working with Franco. Not exactly how things went down historically, but it is, but you know, it made for a good story here. So Lady Bloodstrike's a part of this, and she wants to take him down, or Lady Deathstrike, sorry. Look at her little claws there. She's a foe for Wolverine, all right. And they duke it out and all that, and it turns out she's got this past where she thinks he's responsible for her father's failures and all that. And eventually Wolverine makes it back into modern times. And the people who were chasing after her at this point are building this, like, little girl robot thing to kill Wolverine. And she's going to be packed with explosives, and this comes out in here. He had death in Venice, and by Venice, they don't mean Venice, Italy. They mean Venice, Southern California. That's a very odd thing. So the people who are doing this make a Wolverine robot, like that's a clone robot, and then they make this little girl, and this clone robot's going around killing people. He's used to draw the real Wolverine out, and we're starting to get into some 90s cheesecake here with Silvestri's art. And this little girl has just like bomb strapped her and all that, and she's gonna blow herself up when Wolverine's presence. But unfortunately, she's got a logic algorithm where she's kind of figured things out and has actually made both of them into more than they were in the sum of their parts. So Wolverine takes down the original bad dude, and then they get a second issue where they kind of have a rematch through this. Some guest appearances from X-Men, as you can see. And eventually the little girl stops the bomb within her and like kind of gains her own sentient power, and Wolverine kind of saves her and goes after her. Now the other robot thinks that she needs to kill Wolverine, so he starts to come back in this next issue. So while Wolverine's protecting this girl, there's Jubilee you can see in here too. This guy comes back, and they have another drama through all of this. End up at the bottom of the ocean. Lots of just like really emotionally charged moments through this storyline as this goes on. It's cool stuff. Sabretooth shows up, and they have their little fight. Sabretooth keeps calling himself Wolverine's father, and Cable shows up in this, as you can see. Lots of guest appearances as they're trapped in these sewers and have to escape together. Hey, Art Tiber on a little bit of a pin-up there, and Mike Mignola was the page before that. They get out, and this storyline's still going on with this little girl. It's a really long storyline for this era, which is fine. It's beautiful, and I was very happy to go through this. It's all super action-packed all the way through, and the art is so consistent. Oh my gosh, it was so nice to read this. I'm not a big Wolverine fan, so it was very interesting going through this. The girl goes to the bottom of the ocean, looks like she's going to die, and Wolverine ends up having to fight some other baddies through this. And here we go. Menace as old as time, as cold as death. Beautiful stuff. So some girls want to hang out with Wolverine, of course. And this is a weird, really creepy one. Like, they're pregnant, and there's this monster chasing after them and killing these pregnant ladies. So this was really disturbing. This is very 90s edgy through this. Peter David actually wrote this last issue. So it really did a quick flip. And he saved the last one, basically, is what it came down to. There were 3 ladies. And Wolverine ends up saving the last one. Very disturbing issue. Lots of Peter David style humor in it. That's that dark humor that he does otherwise. And then you get one more graphic novel at the end, and it was kind of detached from the rest of the story. It did kind of close things off because Wolverine had to switch from that little girl story that was going on. But that was it. Not a really memorable coda outside of the fact that it was like disturbing and weird. Now, you get this Bloody Choices here, which is the final graphic novel, and I guess it was printed in a different size because they had to print this with a bunch of white at the bottom here. And this one is like, Tom DeFalco wrote this, and John Buscema, who's like the master Marvel artist, like they did some cool colors on his art here. This art's almost even better than Silvestri's in a lot of ways. Very nice. I wish it could have been full-sized to appreciate the art a little bit more. But Wolverine basically is after a child molester in this one. Again, just like really dark storyline. And that's not really DeFalco's MO typically, so it's kind of weird to see that. So him and Fury are going after this child molester, and there's like this ring, like of this bigger drug ring that Fury's trying to bring down. And Fury ends up having to protect the child molester in order to get that information on those even worse guys. And so he's trying to save that guy's life. Wolverine wants him dead, and they eventually end up clashing because of that. And of course, the guy tries to bust out of Fury's care and get back into his sort of evil drug dealing ring and all that. Just such nice art. Buscema just does such a wonderful job. I really love this right here. Very, very classic. And eventually Wolverine and Fury end up having to fight because Fury's got his word of honor on saving this guy, and Wolverine's like, you know what? No, this guy needs to go down. And so that ends up happening. Fury, he doesn't fight to the death on this. Wolverine just kicks his butt. And then Wolverine goes after the guy for real. So the guy ends up being betrayed by his own little drug running operation throughout the course of this. He gets caught in some barbed wire towards the end. Kind of just really dark and heavy, violent stuff. Like I said, not very DeFalco-like from what I've read of DeFalco stuff, but like a really gripping story all the way through this. And Buscema's art just makes it candy on top of that. So Wolverine, is like, I'm not, he does what you think's going to be the superhero. Like, maybe I shouldn't even bother killing him. But guess what? He does not do the superhero thing. He kills the child molester. Thank you, Wolverine, for doing that. It was a satisfying ending. So really good all the way around. Like I said, I'm not a huge Wolverine fan typically, but this was fun stuff. If you want to read any of the epic collections with Wolverine in it so far, I think this is the one I'd recommend, Volume 3. This was like probably 9 out of 10 overall. Just good comics. This is solid comics. There's nothing in here that I'd say is like, oh, this is the iconic appearance of this villain or whatever. That's not really what this is. It's just stories that are engaging and fun, and the art's beautiful. It's and lots of action. This is what comics are when they're good. All right, hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.